Hello there, it's good to see you again on 7Edition. I'm Xantia Rohaizad and these are tonight's headlines. Police to conduct a full investigation into the death of Major Muhammad Zahid Armaya. Government announces enforcement of new SOP beginning today. And 400 million Facebook users' phone numbers exposed after server compromised. Police will conduct a full investigation into the death of Major Muhammad Zahid Armaya, who was shot during a military demonstration at the Lok Kawi camp in Penampang, Sabah yesterday morning. Inspector General of Police Datuk Seri Abdul Hamid Bado said a full investigation is necessary before any statement can be issued.
Itu yang dikatakan malang tidak berbau, ya. Dah diatur, dah disusun yang elok, berlaku juga. Itu kuasa siapa, ya. So, pihak polis pula akan mengambil tindakan untuk menyiasat selengkap-lengkapnya. Bagi pihak keluarga Allahyarham, bagi pihak ATM, ya, kami tidak akan terburu-buru mengeluarkan apa-apa statement yang tidak disokong oleh fakta. Ya.
The top cop also said although the session followed certain standard operating procedures, police will still conduct its probe. Yesterday, Penampang Police Chief Muhammad Haris Ibrahim said police are investigating an army personnel under the penal code. Police have also confiscated a weapon believed to be linked to the incident.
Meanwhile, over 1,000 people, including family, friends and military personnel, attended Major Muhammad Zahid's funeral, which was carried out in full military honours. The late commando officer was buried at Tambun Muslim Cemetery in Ipoh, Perak this morning. His remains arrived at about 5:45 a.m. from the Wardiban camp in Jalan Genting Klang, Setapak. Also present at the funeral was Perak Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Ahmad Faizal Azumu. The 36-year-old from the 11th Regiment Special Unit at the Sungai Udang camp in Melaka died yesterday at 9:20 a.m. at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Kota Kinabalu. Major Muhammad Zahid leaves behind a wife and 3 children aged between 5 months and 9.
The federal government today announced the enforcement of a new standard operating procedure (SOP) for bauxite mining in Pahang, promising more stringent regulation of the industry. Water, Land and Natural Resources Minister Dr. A. Xavier Jayakumar said the SOP is being implemented from today onwards. This after the final details were ironed out between his ministry and the state government. Among the SOP's key objectives will be sustainability, streaming of mining operations and exports, as well as enforcement, which the minister also said will prioritize environmental preservation. He added the SOP also took into consideration all stakeholders' views. The Customs Department foiled an attempt to smuggle almost 2.3 million sticks of cigarettes into the country recently. Its Director General Datuk Seri Padi Abdul Halim said the illicit cigarettes were seized from a lorry during an operation in Kerteh, Terengganu last Friday. The cigarettes were valued at 207,000 ringgit, with unpaid taxes amounting to 1.5 million ringgit.
Based on intelligence reports, the customs enforcement team tailed the lorry driven by a 31-year-old male suspect at 2 a.m. on August 30th. The lorry was on its way to Kuala Lumpur from Kuala Terengganu via the East Coast Expressway when the driver became aware of the authorities' presence. He sped off but was subsequently intercepted an hour later at the Kerteh Toll Plaza in Kemaman.
Ini penahanan ini adalah hasil daripada orang awam maklumat, dan hasil pemeriksaan ke atas lori tersebut, pasukan telah mendapati barang yang dimuatkan dalam lori tersebut adalah rokok putih dan rokok kretek pelbagai jenama, nanti kita akan tengok di store kita tu, yang dipercayai belum lulus custom.
The cigarettes believed to have been smuggled from a neighbouring country by a syndicate for distribution in the capital city. The suspect has been remanded for 14 days to facilitate investigation. Since January, the customs made a total of 214 arrests of suspects believed to have been members of cigarette smuggling syndicates.
Members of the public and media workers added into WhatsApp groups containing illegal content, such as pornography, can submit screenshots to the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission, MCMC. Its chairman, Al-Ishsal Ishaq, said that his commission will begin internal investigations upon receiving the complaints.
So they can screen capture, because the person who generated the group, there's a phone number there, and they can screen capture and send to our new WhatsApp hotline. There's the fastest way.
Yep. And what is that action for? What?
And we will start the process internally.
The process
to investigate, right, with PDRM.
All right.
So remember, MCMC, our framework is complaints-based. So we receive complaints from orang ramai and from the grievance from the various parties. Just screen capture the image of the WhatsApp, if you want to complain, and send it to us via email or via WhatsApp, and then we will process immediately. We've got teams running almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
What are the consequences
since our announcement
of starting this kind of WhatsApp group?
It depends. Well, it depends on what the content is. Yeah.
The MCMC boss was responding to new releases from the sex video, implicating Economic Affairs Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Azmin Ali, in which more than 80 members of the media and several politicians were added to a WhatsApp chat group from 3:35 this morning. When asked whether the Commission prioritizes high-profile cases, Al-Ishsal said all cases were treated equally.
That I've gotten when I've gone around to all our states in Malaysia.
The former director of the Terengganu National Bank Foundation, YBNT, was again charged in the Kuala Terengganu Magistrates Court today, and this time for allegedly operating a tour and Umrah service without a valid license. 31-year-old Muhammad Adam Muhammad Ghazali pleaded not guilty to the charge before Magistrate Nur Adila Abdul Latif. He allegedly committed the offence under the Tourism Industry Act on October 31st, 2016 in Besut. If convicted, the accused faces a fine of up to 500,000 ringgit or 10 years in jail. In July, he was hauled to court over 76 charges of fraudulent Umrah packages involving 4,800 individuals and amounting to nearly 300,000 ringgit. The court did not grant bail and set October 1st for remention. Malaysia sees great potential in Russia's Far East as Moscow is actively developing the region through a comprehensive initiative. In his keynote address at the 5th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, Prime Minister Tun Dr Mahathir said Malaysia, as a trading nation, needed a new growth area. On the sidelines of the forum, the Tun Dr Mahathir held a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. During the 30-minute meeting, both leaders discussed efforts to further strengthen ties between the two countries. The Premier also met his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi. This is the second meeting between the two leaders. The first meeting was held in May last year, when Modi called on Tun Dr Mahathir in Putrajaya. Now, Tun Dr Mahathir, who will be on a 3-day working visit to Japan, is expected to meet the governor of Japan Bank for International Cooperation, JBIC, Tadashi Maeda. The meeting is likely to discuss on the issuance of the second samurai bonds, which is being considered by Malaysia.
Malaysian ambassador to Japan, Datuk Kennedy Jawan, said the meeting, which was set to be held on Sunday, was requested by JBIC.
This was requested by the Japanese side through the embassy in Kuala Lumpur. We understand that the purpose of this call would be for the Japanese side to explain in detail the possible issuance of the second tranche of the samurai bond.
Last month, Tun Dr Mahathir said the government is considering another round of loans called samurai bonds from Japan. The Premier is scheduled to arrive in Osaka, Japan at 10:15 p.m. local time tonight from Vladivostok, Russia. Tomorrow, the Premier will be conferred an honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters from Doshisha University over his admirable leadership and to boost bilateral ties. He is the 68th recipient of the honorary doctorate from the 144-year-old university. This is also Tun Dr Mahathir's 6th visit to the country since he became Prime Minister.
Coming up, Malaysia's University Esports Championship makes a comeback. Stay with us for the details.
17,000 pengunjung di ONS musim.
We're back with foreign news. Phone numbers linked to more than 400 million Facebook accounts were listed online in the latest privacy lapse involving the social media giant. It was reported that a server that was compromised stored 419 million records on users across several databases, including 133 million US accounts, more than 50 million in Vietnam, and 18 million in Britain. According to US-based technology news portal TechCrunch, the databases listed Facebook user IDs, which are unique digits attached to each account, the profiles' phone numbers, as well as the gender listed by some accounts and their geographical locations. The server was not password protected, meaning anyone could access the databases, and remained online until late Wednesday. Facebook confirmed parts of the report, but downplayed the extent of the exposure, saying that the number of accounts so far confirmed was around half of the reported 419 million. It added that many of the entries were duplicates and that the data was old. Over in Japan, a man died when a train collided with a truck at a rail crossing in Yokohama on Thursday morning. The victim was pulled out of the debris but has succumbed to his injuries. It was learned from local media reports that at least 34 people were also injured in the collision. The incident occurred on the KQ line between Kanagawa Shimachi and Nakakido stations at around 11:40 a.m. local time. The crash also caused the derailment of the first 3 carriages of the train, which then burst into flames. It was believed that an explosion also occurred and shook the nearby houses. Footage uploaded by social media users showed clouds of smoke billowing from the first carriages of the derailed train. According to the Japan Times, the deceased was the 67-year-old truck driver, while a woman in her 20s remains in critical condition. Japan Transport Safety Board said it would dispatch investigators to probe the incident. A day after announcing the withdrawal of the controversial extradition bill, Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam said the decision was made by the government, with Beijing's backing. In her speech on Thursday, the chief executive expressed hope that the withdrawal of the bill and other measures proposed on Wednesday will help solve the city's heated political crisis.
But I'm sure you want to ask about the position of the Central People's Government, so may I just also supplement that throughout the whole process, the Central People's Government took the position that they understood why we have to do it. They respected my view, and they supported me all the way.
The withdrawal, described as olive branch to end the ongoing violence in the financial hub, was one of the protesters' 5 demands, although many demonstrators and lawmakers said the move was a little too late. The 4 other demands are retraction of the word riot to describe rallies, release of all demonstrators and independent inquiry into perceived police brutality, and the right for Hong Kong people to choose their own leaders. The bill, first proposed in February, sparked months of mass protests and plunged the Chinese-ruled city into its biggest political crisis in decades. Hurricane Dorian has exited Florida, setting its sights on the coasts of Georgia and the Carolinas, just this time stronger and a little larger. According to the National Hurricane Center, these areas face a triple threat of destructive winds, flooding rains, and life-threatening storm surges. While Dorian stayed far enough off the coast to largely spare Florida from the worst of its wrath, it is forecasted to make a much closer approach to the coastline of the Carolinas Thursday and Friday, and could even make landfall. Impacts are thus expected to be more severe. In addition, Dorian has gained some added strength, increasing the risk of storm hazards. Its maximum sustained winds are back up to 115 meters per hour, meaning it has regained Category 3 intensity. If it makes landfall in North Carolina, it would be the first Category 3 to strike since Hurricane Fran in 1996. It's time for our daily segment, Clickbait, where we take a look at what's trending and making the rounds in the cyber world today. Resorting to violence is never the answer in any dispute, especially against a woman. But here's a rare story, where a man hit himself instead of harming his wife in a domestic argument. Although it is baffling to watch someone hitting themselves really hard, the consideration of not wanting to strike his partner can be respected. Here's the story.
A video went viral a few days ago on social media showing the rather odd scene of a couple arguing in the middle of the road. While they were quarreling and things were starting to heat up, the man suddenly started slapping his own face really hard. In the close to 5-minute long video, the woman was also shouting at him, but it was unclear what she was saying, and as they continued arguing, he continued to slap himself a few more times. The woman, believed to be his wife, seemed to be asking him to calm down, but he was still rather worked up and continued slapping himself. Based on netizens' comments, it looks like he got angry, and instead of raising his hand against his wife to show his frustration, he expressed it by slapping his own face. Some of them said that he was rather silly to do that to himself, but a lot of them praised him as he did not choose to beat his wife, but rather took it out on himself instead. After slapping himself dozens of times, the argument seemingly ended and he got back on his motorcycle. Both him and his wife then have a relatively calm discussion, this time with no slapping involved. The scene then had a happy ending as the woman finally got on the motorcycle and rode off with her husband. The video has since been shared over 5,400 times with over 557,000 views.
Now for our My Game On segment, bringing you the latest news on esports and gaming. After successfully organizing XPAX Kejohanan Isukan Campus Semester 1, Media Prima Digital and Celcom Xantia Berhad today unveiled the second edition of Malaysia's University Esports Championship. The tournament will see Malaysian grassroots talents from higher learning institutions compete for a total cash prize pool of 180,000 ringgit. Wan Izul Islam has the story.
Welcome to My Game On with me, Wan Izul Islam, and for this week's segment, let me introduce to you XPAX Kejohanan Isukan Campus Semester 2. Let's go find out about the prize pool as well as what games are going to be played this year. Let's go.
Organized by My Game On in collaboration with esports partner Kitaman, the event will be held in 5 different zones around the nation. 2 of the world's top mobile games, namely Mobile Legends Bang Bang and PUBG Mobile, will be on display at this year's Kejohanan Isukan Campus, or CAKE.
The prize pool will be at 180,000 ringgit worth. That's not inclusive of other prizes that will be sponsored by our respective sponsors. But the games that were played this time around will be Mobile Legends Bang Bang and also PUBG Mobile. Also, there will be an open competition sponsored by Legion by Lenovo. That will be a competition where the public can actually join, and they also get to win some prizes as well.
online qualifiers for both games will be held in each zone, where teams will compete to secure a spot in the top 16. Qualifying teams will then go head-to-head in the zone knockouts, where the winners from each zone will head to the grand finals at the end of November in Kuala Lumpur. Teams from the best performing campus will also stand a chance to receive a scholarship worth 50,000 ringgit as part of Celcom Expats Esports Empowerment Initiative.
Esports as a platform, it's a no-regret move for us. Youth, it's into esports. A lot of our youth are into esports. Our base, a lot of our subscribers are into esports. So it's obvious that through esports we can communicate or interact with them in a meaningful way. And this is a fantastic platform.
The second edition of Expat Cake will also feature a few new elements, such as educating the youth through a series of esports forum with industry players. The crowd will also be entertained by top local artists such as Hail Hussaini, Indah Rahaila, Ismail Izani, Nabila Razali and many more. One is Islam for 7Edition.
Let's take a short break, but coming up, Sea of Red sweeps across Milan for a Ferrarious celebration. Stay tuned for this and more. Thanks for staying with us. The Malaysian Palm Oil Council, MPOC, is now focusing on the production and export of crude palm oil instead of refined palm oil to offset current volatile palm oil prices. Its CEO, Dato' Kaliana Sundram, said this was following an increase in import duty by the Indian government on refined palm oil commodity by 5%.
In the coming months, we anticipate that will take away part of the market share from refined palm oil in Malaysia, but we still have the opportunity to sell crude palm oil from Malaysia because the crude palm oil ex-Malaysia is still being sold duty-free, and that will also continue to be imported by the Indian refiners now.
He also said the move was to prevent Malaysia from losing the export of refined palm oil to the country. Currently, India imposes a 50% refined palm oil import tax from 45% for 6 months. Malaysia was the largest supplier of refined palm oil to India in the first half of this year. Bursa Malaysia closed slightly lower today despite positive sentiment on the regional stock markets as mild profit-taking activities in blue chips limited gains. A dealer said positive sentiment on the regional bourses continued for the rest of trading day today as investors were boosted by news that American and Chinese officials are to meet early next month for fresh negotiations on trade. The benchmark FBM-KLCI eased to 1,599.75 at close. Now on to stocks to watch. Burmaz Auto Berhad's near-term earnings growth will be driven by the stream of all new models, especially from its popular facelifted and turbo Mazda CX-5. The firm also boasts superior margins that are above industry peers and a steady dividend yield at 7%. Next, Valesto Energy Berhad has a clear earnings visibility for the next 1 to 2 years as it remains a prime beneficiary of increased jack-up drilling rigs demand in the country. The firm was also recently included into a Bursa Malaysia's index for companies with satisfactory environmental, social and governance practices. And last but not least, UEM Xantia Rohaizad is focusing on increasing its order book to lift revenue and technology-driven cost efficiency to maintain margins. The stock remains a good exposure to a stable earnings stream with dividend yields of between 3.8% and 4% for financial years 2019 and 2020.